Real-Time 1960s presents Evening Report, a complete roundup of today's news with Joe Rubenstein.
Good evening. In Vietnam, 6 Americans are killed. In Mississippi, preparations for Freedom Summer. In Washington, 2 senators want the U.S. out of Vietnam. Jack Ruby is doomed, Malcolm X speaks out, and Cassius Clay has a new name. Those are the headlines. The details after this message.
Look, home-baked Danish rolls. They're new Pillsbury Quick Orange Danish rolls with icing, real orange icing, and refrigerated fresh dough, America's new way to bake. 48 layers of dough with shortening between layers for flakiness. In about 10 minutes, they bake into 8 rolls, ready for the orange icing. Crisp, flaky Danish rolls.
Nothing says loving like something from the oven, and Pillsbury says it best.
New Pillsbury Quick Orange Danish rolls in the dairy case.
In South Vietnam last weekend, 6 Americans were killed in combat against the communist Viet Cong. 2 officers and 2 gunners were fatally wounded Sunday when their helicopter was hit by Viet Cong ground fire. The helicopter was on a search and clear operation in the communist-infested Mekong Delta region, about 100 miles south of Saigon. One of the Americans lived for an hour after the helicopter exploded, but he died shortly after he was transferred to a Saigon hospital. The 2 other Americans were killed Saturday when their observation plane was hit by ground fire. This week, Henry Cabot Lodge, U.S. ambassador to South Vietnam, was asked to explain what U.S. interests were at stake in the South Vietnamese War.
If you take a piece of string and put one end of it on Saigon on the map, measure off 1,000 miles and make a circle, you'll find that within that circle are 240 million people, which is Southeast Asia, which includes the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaya, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Burma, Formosa. Loss of this area would be a catastrophe and would make a lot of Americans think that we'd better resign from the human race, so to speak, and fall back on a fortress America and gird ourselves up for a fight with guided missiles.
After expressing the view that the war could still be won, he was asked how long it would take to achieve victory.
Oh, I don't know. Time and chance will tell on how long it takes. We have to be patient. We have to persist. We can't expect one of these flashy ninth inning victories, It's not that kind of a thing.
Finally, Mr. Lodge was asked if time was on our side or the communist side if the war became a long, protracted struggle.
That depends entirely on American public opinion. If we are not easily discouraged, if we persist, then we're going to win this thing just as sure as anything.
Meanwhile, 2 U.S. senators are advocating military withdrawal from South Vietnam. Ernest Gruening, Democrat of Alaska, in a speech last week on the Senate floor, deplored the fact that more than 200 Americans had been killed in what he called a bloody and wanton stalemate, adding, quote, "This is a fight which is not our fight, into which we should not have gotten in the first place. I consider the life of one American worth more than this putrid mess. I consider every additional life sacrificed in this forlorn venture a tragedy. Someday, not distant, if this sacrificing continues, it will be denounced as a crime," unquote. Senator Wayne Morse, Democrat of Oregon, expressed a similar view in equally blunt language. In one of several speeches on the war over the past 2 weeks, he asserted, quote, "Southeast Asia is not essential to U.S. defense. Southeast Asia may very well be essential to the defense of some of our allies, but where are they? They ran out on us. We should never have gone in. We should never have stayed in. We should get out," unquote. Holding the opposite view is Senator Thomas Dodd, Democrat of Connecticut, who wants to expand the war into North Vietnam. Responding to Senators Gruening and Morse, Mr. Dodd assailed what he called, quote, "the faint-hearted chorus of those who always ask the price of victory," unquote, adding, quote, "We must help turn the war against North Vietnam, the home base of the aggressor," unquote. Both viewpoints, however, represent a small minority, as most senators in both parties, while deeply concerned about the progress of the war, support current administration policy for what they see as a lack of acceptable alternatives. That policy is to provide military and financial assistance to South Vietnam for as long as necessary to prevent a communist takeover. On Sunday, New York Police Commissioner Michael Murphy said he would not allow civil rights extremists to turn New York City into a battleground, after stating that most civil rights leaders were men of intelligence, stature, and good judgment. He denounced 3 controversial Negro leaders: Malcolm X, leader of the Muslim Black Nationalists; Jesse Gray, leader of the Harlem Rent Strikes; and Herbert Callender, chairman of the Bronx chapter of the Congress of Racial Equality. When Mr. Murphy was asked if he thought Negroes would arm themselves for self-defense, as Malcolm X has advocated, he said, quote, "The people have too much sense to do that," unquote. Mr. Murphy then harshly criticized Malcolm X, stating, quote, "This self-proclaimed leader openly advocates bloodshed and armed revolt, and sneers at sincere efforts of reasonable men to resolve the problem of equal rights by proper, peaceful, and legitimate means. He is well aware of, but cynically and coldly unmoved by, the possible serious consequences of his words. We are confident that the sanity and intelligence of the people of this city will reject his hate-filled mouthings," unquote. At a rally in Harlem later that afternoon, Malcolm X responded to the criticism. He said he did not advocate violence and bloodshed, but, quote, "The greatest compliment anyone can pay me is to say I'm irresponsible. Because by responsible, they mean Negroes who are responsible to white authorities."
There's been a lot of talk said recently because I was supposed to have said something about Negroes should buy rifles. White people have been buying rifles all their lives. No commotion. America is based upon the right of people to organize for self-defense. This is in the Constitution of the United States. The Second Amendment to the Constitution spells out the right of people under this particular governmental system to have arms to defend themselves. I don't think when a man is being criminally treated that some criminal has the right to tell that man what tactics to use to get the criminal off his back. When a criminal starts misusing me, I am going to use whatever necessary to get that criminal off my back. And the injustice that has been inflicted upon Negroes in this country by Uncle Sam is criminal. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices. The government can bring these injustices to halt.
At the same rally, Jesse Gray, another target of Mr. Murphy's criticism, said the commissioner was allied with quote-unquote slumlords and that he should be forced to resign. On Saturday, a Dallas jury deliberated for 2 hours and 19 minutes before settling on a verdict in the murder trial of Jack Ruby. Last November 24th, Mr. Ruby shot to death Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President Kennedy. It was the first televised murder in history. Judge Joe Brown announced the jury's decision.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder with malice as charged in the indictment and assess his punishment at death. Signed, Max E. Causey, Foreman. So say you all, ladies and gentlemen. Is that your unanimous verdict? Will all of you whose verdict that is, please hold up your right hands. All right, Sheriff, he's your prisoner.
Melvin Belli, Mr. Ruby's defense counsel, loudly protested the verdict, which he asserted was a gross miscarriage of justice.
I hope the people of Dallas are proud of this jury that was shoved down our throat. One juror, before he sat on that jury, told his employee that if he got on the Ruby jury, he'd vote the death penalty. Another juror waved at the policeman when they were on the witness stand. Her nephew does the public relations work for the police department.
A reporter asked Mr. Belli to assess Judge Brown's handling of the case.
He went down the line for every motion that the district attorney made, and they led him into some 30 errors. And every Texas jurist knows this thing was the greatest railroading kangaroo court disgrace in the history of American law. When I think we're coming into Holy Week and Good Friday, to have a sacrifice like this, I think we're back 2,000 years.
Joe Tannehill, a Texas lawyer who assisted Mr. Belli, gave his blunt reaction to the verdict and sentence.
It's a violent miscarriage of justice.
Anything else to add to that, Mr. Tannehill?
I'm about to throw up.
Unsurprisingly, Henry Wade, the victorious prosecutor, held a different view.
From the start, when this happened, I thought it was a case where he should have the death penalty. I've said that all along. And not guilty, I think, would have put it back toward barbarianism or lynch law of each individual citizen deciding who should be killed or who shouldn't be killed. I think it was a murder case that had more implications probably than the ordinary killing, because of the fact you're killing a man handcuffed that's innocent until he's proven guilty.
I'll have more news for you after this message.
Watch their faces light up when they see America's favorite pizza, Chef Boyardee Pizza, complete with cheese, and America's newest, Chef Boyardee Pizza with sausage and cheese. True Italian-style sausage in every bite, both with crunchy crust outside, so tender inside, and true Italian-style sauce from Chef's own recipe. So light up their faces tonight with 2 delicious Chef Boyardee pizzas. A meal in a minute with a chef's touch in it.
Here again, Joe Rubenstein.
In New York City Saturday, Robert Moses of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee announced plans for a program of Negro education and political action in Mississippi this summer. Mr. Moses, a 29-year-old Negro, holds a master's degree in philosophy from Harvard University. Several years ago, he gave up teaching at a private school in New York to devote all his time to the civil rights movement.
We hope to send into Mississippi this summer upwards of 1,000 teachers, ministers, lawyers, and students from all around the country who will engage in what we're calling freedom schools, community center programs, voter registration activities, research work, work in the white communities, and in general, a program designed to open up Mississippi to the country. That is, to get the country to actually take a look at Mississippi in toto, what she is, what kind of state she is, what kind of political system you have there, and to really examine it, and to try and force, if possible, some kind of real change in the state and to get the vote. Now, we don't believe that there's any reason, given the poll tax amendment, that Negroes in that state can't vote in the presidential election.
The volunteers will be asked to pay the cost of their transportation and expenses, expected to be about $200 for the summer. Negro families in Mississippi will provide housing. One student who plans to join the drive expressed his commitment in the following terms, quote, "Mississippi is the last stronghold of the old Confederacy, and feelings are bitter. But those who are going there have made their decisions rationally. We know there is a chance of being hurt, of being jailed, of being killed, but we still believe in the cause so strongly that we must go." Last Friday, the boxer formerly known as Cassius Clay arrived in Chicago to meet with the man he called, quote, "my honorable teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad," unquote. After disclosing last month that he was a member of the Nation of Islam, the separatist movement led by Mr. Muhammad, the champion had initially said he would call himself Cassius X, but that was before Malcolm X defected from the organization.
Cassius Clay is a name no more, is that right?
Yes, sir. It's Muhammad Ali. Muhammad means worthy of all praises, and Ali means most high in the Asian African language.
How long have you had the name?
Well, for about 2 weeks now.
Is anybody special gave you the name?
Yes, sir. My leading teacher, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Is this part of the religious beliefs and
Yes,
concepts?
sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to soon take a world tour, and I'll be going out through Asia and Africa, Egypt, the holy city Mecca, and all of these real holy lands. You must be the Islamic faith, and you must have a Islamic name to enter the gates.
This afternoon, the champion was rejected for U.S. military service. The decision was based on 2 standard pre-induction qualification tests. The Pentagon stated, quote, The Department of the Army has completed a review of Cassius Clay's second pre-induction examination and has determined he is not qualified for induction into the Army under applicable standards. Clay was given a second test after it was determined that the results of his initial test were inconclusive. Expert analysis of the results of the two tests indicate that Clay put forth his best efforts on both occasions." Unquote. The champion is said to have failed the mathematics part of the test. Today, several members of Congress were critical of the Army's decision. Congressman William Ayers, Republican of Ohio, who was inducted into the Army as a private in World War II, said, quote, "Had I flunked math, I still could have peeled potatoes for the first 2 months of my Army service, which I did. Anybody that can throw a punch like Cassius ought to be able to throw a knife around a potato." Unquote. Congressman Cornelius Gallagher, Democrat of New Jersey, a company commander in World War II and the Korean War, said, quote, "If I were Cassius Clay, I would feel insulted and ask for a waiver. Despite his lack of formal education, Clay is an outstanding physical example and possesses a quick mind. He is a hero symbol to American youth, and I am sure he would like to serve his country." Unquote. As for the champion, he took the rejection in stride, telling reporters, quote, "I just said I'm the greatest. I never said I was the smartest." Unquote. Sports, right after this.
Pillsbury Fudge Brownie Mix. The only mix that makes real chocolate brownies. Rich, moist, chewy. Remember, only one mix is made with real chocolate. Pillsbury's.
On Monday, Paul Hornung of the Green Bay Packers and Alex Karras of the Detroit Lions were reinstated by NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle after 11-month suspensions for betting on games. Rozelle made the decision after interviewing Hornung and Karras in his New York office to, quote, "explore their attitude and thinking," unquote. Hornung had been apologetic from the start, saying many times that he did wrong and should be punished. Karras, however, was initially indignant, stating he'd done nothing wrong, and it took him several months to change his attitude. On Monday, Karras was contrite, stating, quote, "The suspension may have been the best thing that ever happened to me. Pro athletes get lulled into thinking that their sports careers will last the rest of their lives. You don't know how much you miss something until you have it taken away," unquote. Hornung, the NFL's leading scorer for 3 years and the 1961 MVP, said he would go to Green Bay immediately to start workouts under coach Vince Lombardi's direction. And that, for this evening, completes our look at the latest news on this Friday, March 20th, 1964. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day tomorrow.
This has been your Evening Report, a roundup of the latest news with Joe Rubenstein.